Welcome to Small Business Big Visibility. We are talking about websites. This is part of a mini series for websites, and today we're talking about, do you as a small business owner even need a website? That is something that most of the time the answer is yes, but there are several situations I've run across where the business owner would be better off without focusing on a website at that point in time in their business. So if you're in the position you're trying to figure out if you need a website for your business or not, let's dive right in and cover it so that you've got the answer you're looking for. All right, I've had several instances where business owners come to me and they're like, I think I need a website, or my friends tell me I have to have a website, or some marketing company called me up and told me I can't run my business without a website. I've had a lot of these experiences, and sometimes they're right, they absolutely need to have a website. Other times, they're totally wrong. They can keep running without a website. Kind of a fun fact, I own a web design agency, and for about the first 9 months that I was running that company, I didn't have a website. Yeah, let that sink in for just a second. I was running a web design company without having a website of my own. Now, there's the old saying that the barber's kids are the ones that always need a haircut. Sometimes that's true for web designers too, apparently. The web designer company needed a website, didn't have one. But let's dive in now and talk about a few situations where you probably shouldn't have a website yet, and places when it makes sense to start thinking about having a website, and then the different options that you can go to have a website if this is your first time ever thinking about having one, or ever building one, or hiring someone to build one. One of the best examples of a guy who didn't need a website actually came to me, and we sat down and had a great conversation, and he proposed to me his whole business plan of what he was doing and how he wanted a website, and not only a website, but he wanted it to rank at the top of the search results for a whole local market. He was planning to take over the market and really showcase that he was the best. By the time we got done, he decided he didn't need a website anymore. Here's a few of the details that might be helpful for you as you're trying to figure out if a website's right for you or not. This particular business owner was in the home inspection business, and he was brand new. That's one key piece to keep in mind. He was brand new. The second key piece to keep in mind is, as we were discussing and exploring, we were talking about the web and how customers flow, and we discovered people usually need an inspection about the time that they're buying a home. Usually makes sense. There's very few other situations where someone needs a home inspection and goes and gets one. There are some, but it's not the majority of the customers. It's a very small niche. As we were discussing, we talked about if the customers need a home inspection at the moment that they're buying a home, they're usually working with a real estate professional, and they have somebody that's doing their mortgage, and they've got all these different people that are helping them out. And I asked him, when one of those people is buying a home, do they usually find an inspector from like family and friends, or do they go online and search for it, or what's that process? And he told me, most of the time, the people that need a home inspection are buying the house, working with the real estate agent. The real estate agent says, here's a couple of people that you could pick from to get a home inspection. Or sometimes the real estate agent says, I would highly recommend you use this one home inspector. And that's usually the process. So it's almost always the real estate agent that's recommending the home inspector. Now imagine with me for just a moment, if you were a brand new business owner. Now, it might be easier for some of you than others, and you've got a certain amount of money budgeted that you can use to get this business up and going, and your plan was to build a website and spend a bunch of money doing search engine optimization, only to find out 4, 6, 8 months later, your customers are not using the internet to find you. How frustrating would that be? So as we discussed that, I recommended to this guy, rather than spending any money on a website right now, why don't you go out, you print some business cards, print some flyers, go out, set up a Facebook page if you want something, set up a Google business profile if you need something on the internet. But right now, where you have exactly 0 customers and you're brand new, rather than investing in the website, let's get a few other pieces figured out. Your customers aren't going to come to you because of the website. They're going to come to you through a recommendation. Therefore, rather than spending a bunch of time and money building a website and optimizing it, why don't you take all of that money and allocate it instead to building relationships with real estate agents and figuring out how to connect with real estate agents so every single real estate agent in this market has heard of you? What would that do for you if you made it connection with every real estate agent in 6 months? In that particular case, he would get way more business because real estate agents would know he's an option for home inspections. And the website would be nice, but it's not going to be the primary factor for driving customers to him. He needed customers more than he needed a nice looking website, and the website was not going to facilitate him getting customers. Now, does it make sense to build a website? Absolutely. If he's trying to build a little bit of credibility, websites are a great way to do that. I've had a ton of other business owners that come to me and they say, I don't really want to spend the money on a website because things are tight right now, but I think I need a website. If that's the case, the thing I say is, well, do you truly need one? How much business can you get without one? And how much business are you not getting because you don't have one? And if the formula makes sense that, oh yeah, I'm going to get way more business because I've set up a website, then it makes sense to build one. Now, if you're short on funds, short on budget, go out to one of these do-it-yourself builders and build a very simple site. It could be a one-page site when you're just getting started, because then you've got something, and something is a lot more than nothing. But you don't have to go out to a marketing agency. You don't have to hire some expensive web design company. You don't have to do search engine optimization at first. All of those things can come later. That's one of the beautiful things about a website is you can not have one and be okay for a while, but as your business grows and you level up, you may decide, I don't need one for the first few months. Once I get X amount of money, and maybe it's once I get $20,000 back into the business from sales, at that point I'm going to allocate funds to go build one, and maybe you build a do-it-yourself site first. And then once the business generates a little bit more money, you can level up your game and hire a company to build you a site. So do you need a site? The answer is maybe. And within maybe, you can do a do-it-yourself site. You could do a super simple one-pager. You can do just a couple of pages. Or you can go out and hire a company that knows what they're doing and can help you build a professional presence. I've also had other businesses, they're brand new. They came at it with the idea that I've got X amount of money to start this business. I'm going to allocate a certain portion to a website. I'm going to allocate a certain portion to getting the word out, promoting my business in different ways, running ads, networking, what have you. And then they expected that they would start getting customers back. But their plan was they were going to push people to that website. And in that case, they absolutely need to have a website. And if one of the first ways that people are going to be introduced to your business doesn't come from a warm lead or a referral or some situation where they've already heard positive things about you, if their first interaction is the website, you oftentimes need a more professional site and have more polish to that site, because it's going to really be that first interaction, and the first interaction someone has with a business or with a brand is critical to set the tone for who the business is. So if your promotion strategy is that people are going to discover you first through the internet, you probably need to spend the money to hire a professional company, because they're going to give you a little bit of an edge on a website that's going to put you just a teeny bit ahead of your competition in theory. And if that's the case, then you can get more customers because you're going to establish trust with them a little bit sooner. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about this concept of the purpose of a website and how you make it look more professional, what you say, what you don't say, in other episodes. But I wanted really to drive this idea home that sometimes business owners don't need a website. Sometimes they shouldn't spend the money on a website, and other times it really does make sense.